Audit Planning and Fieldwork Part 4. Audit program is a set of procedures evidence that an auditor believes is necessary to perform to obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are not affected by material misstatements. It is a set of policies and procedures that dictate how an evaluation of a business is done. Main components of audit programs will include the objectives, procedures and conclusion of each audit work performed. Why do we need to prepare an audit program? It is to guide an auditor in doing auditing and to provide evidence of proper planning and recording of audit work to be done. Besides that, it is to provide the basis for coordinating and supervising audit work and controlling the time spent as well as to standardize the data collection and evaluation process. Do you know that there are two types of audit program? First type of audit program is standard audit program that available for many different industries and can be used proactively to help an organization create its own internal compliance framework and internal audit program. It is different than a fixed audit program, which is defined as an audit program that cannot be changed during the course of an audit. Next is tailored audit program is different from the standard audit program because they cater audit procedures to match specific needs of the auditing entity. These audit programs are tailored to reference specific areas such as business procedures, legal documents and assets. By targeting these specific requirements through tailored audit programs, the company can quickly identify potential compliance lapses and develop internal controls to offset these vulnerabilities. Audit documentation. There are two types of audit files, permanent audit files and current audit files. Permanent audit files is a set of records that serves as an ongoing reference for an organization's external auditors. It contains information of historical or continuing and permanent in nature relevant from year to year. Example of permanent audit files are long-term contracts, companies' advisors, and evaluation of internal control system. Current audit files are files that keep all of the data or information related to the current year auditing. It includes all working papers applicable to the year under audit. For example, audit program, supporting schedules, and management letters. Preparation of working papers. The purpose of it is for fundamental on planning, designing, and performing the audit works. Working paper is a fundamental for review by the partners and supervisors. Working papers provide evidence to support all matters included in the audit report. Content of working paper. It will include client's name, period cover by audit, subject related to the matter, and the references. It also conclude the staff member signature, the date it was prepared by client's staff. Ownership and confidentiality can be defined as a property of the auditor, and some states acknowledge this right of ownership in their statutes. Auditor should adopt reasonable procedures to keep audit documentation for a period of time enough to meet the needs of his practice. It is also to satisfy any relevant regulatory or legal requirements for retention of the records. In addition, they should adopt a reasonable approach to avoid unauthorized access to the audit documentation. Internal control. Responsibility of auditor. Auditor is responsible to plan and perform the audit to require reasonable assurance to see whether if the financial statements are free of financial misstatements. Responsibility of management is to adopt some accounting policies and to set up and maintain the internal control and initiate record, process and report transactions consistent with the management financial statement. Objective of internal control is efficient conduct of business. The control must be in place to make sure that the operation are safe from any problem. This reduce against the risk at inefficiency and threat to the formation at value in the organization. safeguarding assets. The control must be in place to ensure that assets are utilized for their actual motives and are not unprotected to put to wrong or theft. Preventing and detecting fraud and other unlawful acts. Small business with undemanding organization structure could probably become victim to these violations. As an organization becomes bigger in size and its complexity, the nature of illegal exercise begin to be more diverse, and controls must have the ability of addressing these. Completeness and accuracy of financial records. An organization could not be able to create precise financial statements if its financial records are unreliable. Systems must have the ability of recording transaction to ensure that the nature of business transacted is correctly represented in the financial accounts. Timely preparation of financial statements. Organization must be able to fulfill their legal obligation to submit their account perfectly and promptly. They also have a task to create meaningful statement to their shareholders. Control environment. Control environment is the idea of management and their employees concerning the necessity for internal controls. The control environment consists the integrity and ethical value, the organizational structure and task of the authority and responsibility, and the procedure for attracting, progressing and retaining competent individuals. Risk assessment. This is the procedure of accessing the business to search for the most critical risks and then designing controls for those risks. This assessment need to be carried out on a regular basis to take into account any new risks developed by new action formed in the business. DASTAT. Evaluation of internal control. What is evaluation of internal control? It is to examine the effectiveness of an organization where the auditor can determine the extent of other tests that must be performed in order to make an opinion. Step to evaluate. 1. Determine the extent and type of control used by the client. 2. Determine which control that the auditor intends to rely on. 3. Determine the audit procedure either to increase or decrease that is based on what the first and second step result. 4. Recommend the client regarding of how to improve the internal control system. Assessment and documenting understanding of internal controls. The auditor will document the information to obtain and their understanding of the client internal control design in the form of narrative description, internal control questionnaire and checklist flowchart. Internal control questionnaire and checklist. The auditor may ask question of internal control in each of the area in order to indicate the inadequacy the internal control. It's help the auditor document process and highlight the control gaps, strength, weaknesses and differences within the system. Flowchart is a diagrammatic represent of the client accounting system with the related internal control, that show whether the flow of the control in the correct sequence or not, which is from initiation to the recording and the disposition. This will help the auditor in order to identify the control and knowing the differences of the internal control. Letter by management. What is letter by management? Letter of management is letter by an auditor to the management at the end of the audit work, list any weaknesses in the design or operation of the internal control system which may come to this attention, explaining the significance and the effect on current and future financial statement, and make suggestion as the ways these weaknesses can be removed or reduced. What should be included in letter of management? These are the items that you should include in the letter of management. First is purpose of the letter. Second is purpose of the internal control. Third is disclaimer or clause that the weaknesses notified are not necessarily all the weaknesses that may exist. Fourth is weaknesses. Next is recommendation for improvement. Lastly, request info on remedial action. Thank you for watching.